welcome or welcome back to the channel. I am taking a little bit of a break with travel vlogs just because I don't have any trips planned until the end of the month. So in the meantime, I'm going to be making content about photography and travel. So yeah. Today's video is going to be about Shutterstock, which is a stock photography website where you can sell your photos for a little extra pocket change. I had a video about tips for Shutterstock beginners a while ago, and it is doing pretty well. It's over 500 views, which is kind of crazy for me. So yeah, I decided to kind of make another video about Shutterstock. Plus I had somebody comment on that video and ask if I would do a video about the review process and trying to not get your photos rejected. So that is what today's video is going to be about. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button, like this video, and let's get started. So on Shutterstock, anybody can make an account. You can then start uploading your photos, but they do go through a review process before they're available for other people to purchase. And sometimes your photos will get rejected. So this video is going to focus on making sure your photos are good enough to not get rejected. And I'm just going to go through all of the main types of rejections and kind of talk you through what the rejection means and how to avoid it. And I have categorized the rejections, or the reasons for rejection, into 3 different categories: the technical issues, the submissions issues, and the subject matter. So let's just get started. I'm going to go with technical first because I feel like those are probably the top reasons for rejection. At least they have been so far for me. So in general, as long as you are taking photos at the right settings and in the correct lighting and everything, your photos should be good enough to just go on to the site. But obviously there are some issues that you might come across. So one rejection issue is noise or grain in your photos. That's little pixelizations and just in your photos. Sometimes it's hard to tell unless you zoom in a little bit. That often happens if you are shooting with a high ISO, or shooting in low light, and you might have a higher ISO than you would want because ISO causes noise and grain, but you would have brighter photos. So to avoid that, shoot with a low ISO and shoot in good lighting, or use a tripod and have a longer shutter speed. And then you will have more light come in and you won't have to use a higher ISO. The next rejection reason is focus. This is if your photo is out of focus or is blurry or something along those lines. Sometimes a photo will be rejected even if it's in focus, but it's not focused on what the reviewer thinks it should be focused on, if that makes any sense. So for instance, maybe you have a photo and it's focused on the flowers in the foreground, but the background is obviously out of focus. It might get rejected for that even if the flowers are in focus. So when that happens, you just have to resubmit the photo and put in the description focus on flowers or something like that. And then it should probably go through correctly onto the website. Alternatively, it might be rejected because it's blurry, so it's kind of in focus, but usually that means the subject was moving or there was camera shake while you were taking it. To avoid blur, you should either use a faster shutter speed if possible, or use a tripod. And it really depends on what you're shooting too. But usually to avoid blur, you want a faster shutter speed or a tripod, so you don't have any camera shake or anything with your hands. The next technical reason for rejection is incorrect exposure. So if it's either underexposed or overexposed, again, as long as your settings are correct, you shouldn't have any problems with this. Make sure you aren't using too slow or too fast of a shutter speed or too wide or narrow of an aperture. I mean, you should know how to take at least a decent photo if you're going to be doing Shutterstock. So, oh, I forgot to say too, if focus is an issue, then you can try sharpening your photo. That only works if it's a little bit out of focus. If you just sharpen like right in where it's supposed to be in focus, it might end up going through. I had some photos not long ago that were rejected for being out of focus, but I just sharpened them a little and then they went through the next time. So you can try that. Also with grain, you can try doing like the noise reduction in post-processing and try to resubmit again. But usually if it's rejected at like a second time, I just kind of leave it. So let's move on to issues that you might come across during the submission process. When you submit your photos, you need to write a description and you need to put in keywords. If you do that incorrectly, you can have your photo rejected. Usually, if you have keywords or a description that are irrelevant to your photo, so only use relevant keywords. Don't try to like put a bunch of keywords in there that are not related to your photo, because you're going to get a rejection. Plus, if it does go through, then it's just frustrating for people who are trying to find a certain photo and your photo keeps popping up for something that they're not looking for. So keep that in mind. Also, I think if you have like foreign words in a different language, sometimes they get rejected for that. Or if the photo has foreign words in it, I think you're supposed to translate that in the description, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Also, don't put like trademarks or anything like that in the keywords, like brand names. But we'll get a little bit more into like brands and stuff. So the next category is going to be subject matter, and I think this is another big area where you might be getting rejections. So first of all, there's certain photos that they will never accept. These are non-licensable content, and usually it's something like graffiti or a wall mural, pictures of art, pretty much, like things that are going to be copyrighted that are going to be rejected. So photos like from inside of a museum, stuff like that. But I find that sculptures that are like outside will usually get through, but not if it's like inside a museum or something like that. And again, like trademarks, like visible trademarks in your photo and stuff like that. If that happens, you can try submitting it as editorial. So that's kind of what I'm going to go over now, is commercial versus editorial, because those are the two different categories you could submit as when you put your photo in. Commercial is pretty much anything. They can be bought for anything. Editorial can only be bought for editorial purposes. But editorial photos are any photos that you have where you don't have either a model release or a property release. So if it's a photo of a building, or there are people that are recognizable, or anything that's a different like property that would belong to someone, then it needs to be done with editorial. And so I usually will submit my photos first as commercial. If they don't go through as commercial, then I will resubmit them as editorial, and then they'll go through. So just keep that in mind. Editorial kind of sucks because, like I said, they can't be bought for any reason. So the amount of times they'll be bought is usually going to be lower depending on what the photo is of. But it's better than not having the photo go online at all. So those are all of the main rejection reasons that I could find. If there's another reason that your photos are getting rejected, go ahead and leave it in the comments and I'll try to help you like figure it out and why it's getting rejected. Rejected? I feel like I've said that word so many times now that it just sounds weird. But yeah, Shutterstock it can be rewarding, but it also takes a lot of work. I've been doing it for, I think, 3 years now, and I've only made maybe $200. It sucks because they changed it so that the photos only get like 10 cents. Anyway, I'm not gonna go on like a rant about Shutterstock. I do like doing Shutterstock though, just because I like the photography aspect. I like going, like when I go on a trip, purposefully taking photos that I know I'm going to put up as stock. And I always get a little bit of joy when one sells, even if it is only 10 cents, I guess. But yeah, so I'm going to say that's it for today's video. If you have any questions, comments, leave them in the box below. Sorry, I have my camera like set up different than usual. So anyway, peace out. I will see you next time and have a lovely day.